Morning, traders. Welcome to the pre-market analysis that we open up to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to happen today, and then we'll dive right into it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, pass over to Beth. After I'm done speaking here, she's going to go over the bigger cap items, any basically news events that happen over the course of the evening, or anything that makes sense to be looking at from a bigger picture point of view, commodities, et cetera, et cetera. Going over that. I'll be going over, after she's done, the names that are gapping up, gapping down, news associated with those names. We'll build an action plan for them. We'll also go through the technicals on them as well through the SPY, the FANG, the VIX, Qs, and IWM. And then once that's done, South Beach will come on. He'll be going through individual names that he's looking at, macros, bonds, and then any analyst calls that he's looking at for today. After that's done, we'll do a quick little recap of those individual names that I talked about, and then we'll be ready for the open. So further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Beth, like I said, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. Beth, if you're ready, all yours.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. Kumoka here, Wednesday at SpartanTrading.com. Lots to talk about. A lot on the commodity side I want to share with you what I've been doing, as well as some of my hedges. Let's get to it. First off, this API crude build was really unexpected. Okay, so we have to keep an eye on that. We do have some more EIA, ADP numbers, right? And then we have some Bostic is speaking twice, not once. We go from there, right? Overseas in Germany, the factory orders, wow. This rarely happens, friends. I mean, they are fantastic in forecasting. This was a huge surprise, at least from, on my perspective, right? Construction PMI was a little bit low in Germany as well. So we'll see how this plays out. Retail sales weaker than expected. Wow, what a shit show. I don't even know. We do have some breakdown going on in the DAX in terms of the uptrend lines, all kinds of things happening that we have to keep an eye on. All right. Okay. What's going on in the market, I think, is it's getting the yips. And I think, for me, the yips are with this next earnings cycle. I think that they're trying to basically take some chips off the table, rotation, et cetera, growth value, the drill. And we'll see how it plays out. Don't forget, next week we start with the financials. And then we start really getting into it. Is this important? Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, nobody's blinking yet. So, see how it plays out. Keep an eye on this. This is the Whisper report, but this is the earnings Whisper. We want to see September, what it's starting to look like. We constantly are seeing guidance. This has been going on for months. My biggest concern for this market is if we start to see analysts downgrading, lowering, and companies lowering guidance. This could be the setup we've talked about before with 2018. Remember, they had the October, November, December, where they basically took everything to the woodshed, the analysts, got bearish on everything to such a degree. And then we started to see the earnings start to surprise on the upside. Do we have that narrative setting up? Potentially. With that said, I still have longer dated stuff that I'm buying, but I also have my hedges on. And my hedges are in November or in the equity, especially on the inexpensive leverage inverse ETFs. It's just too expensive to go out. So I just pay and the other alternative is basically writing some puts. So we'll see how it plays out. Let's take a look quickly at terms of flows, money flows. There we go. Okay. So past week, everything was taken to the woodshed, except energy, right? That's the theme. Past quarter, materials, energy, financials, industrials. This is why I want to keep a focus on this, especially on the financials. I want to look at the retail side of it. This is where the transports, I want to see them bounce, right? And you can see here what happened last month. Obviously, we have a down market. Discretionary was up, energy was up. right, let's go. All right, so Manchin said that he would approve of a carve out of the filibuster for the debt ceiling. That's the narrative. Let's see how it plays out. You know, I think my personal opinion is irrelevant. The question is going to be whether there will be regulatory action on Facebook. From yesterday, it looks like both the Democrats and Republicans were on the same page, but that's just political speak, right? What are you going to do? I mean, yes, you know, especially when you're talking about young kids, young girls, stuff like that. Well, I mean, I don't know if they actually do anything, and even if they do something, I don't know how much of a impact that will have on Facebook's bottom line. Right? So social media, I personally think it should be done. Look, if they're willing to do it on tobacco, right, and they're willing to do it on opiates, right? And this is the narrative, right? Why wouldn't they do it? Maybe not allowing kids to have access or warnings or something. We'll see. I don't know. This definitely has. This also is, I think, a factor in terms of the mugging. This doesn't happen often when I see something like this with Goldman. Yes, I understand what they're saying. But for me, Nucor, this is the one I would like to play. I agree it's expensive, right? And I agree US Steel is expensive. What I'd like to see is, for me, is a lot of these premiums come in, and then that's where I'm gonna look to buy. Our boy Kramer, what's he saying? Snapback rally says, wait for the next opportunity to buy. I actually agree with that. You know, this is the transitory versus non-transitory. We know that things are going higher. I mean, whatever. I mean, you know the drill. All right, so downgrades. This is what I'm looking at. The airlines got downgraded by Goldman Sachs. They were busy overnight, weren't they? GoGo got a downgrade from Morgan Stanley. Right, Seagate from Morgan Stanley. Then people getting busy here. But you know the drill, for me at least. I like to see what my top peeps are doing. So the top peeps are somebody who's 70% or higher, and that would be Loop Capital, Domino's Pizza. So that gives me, you know, I'm interested in that. Right? Citigroup, PLTR, whatever. Yesterday everything was green except for utilities, XLRE, yada, yada, yada. Let's see what our mean peeps are doing. Peeps and peepettes, I should say. Not a lot. I mean, this is really light option. And even on the volume side, it's pretty light. So, except for OCGN, they had really nice volume on the equity side. Right? I don't know. Sloppy choppy, that's all I know. So, this is the hype going on in terms of social media this morning. Devon Energy, GME, Levi Strauss, MC, Netflix, and Nike, Qualcomm, SD, and SU. Let's see what happens. Yesterday was really fascinating because in the morning, 3/4 of the day there was a lot of retail put buying. And then towards the end of the day, they started going after some stuff, which I find really interesting, like BTBT, OTMO, they were going after. They were going after ADTX, AGFY, and these are things that are popping, you know, this morning. AMPY was puts in the morning, and they started going with calls. Really interesting. All right, let's talk about flows. At the end of the day, somebody bought Roblex. 75 calls, 95,000, TSP, Tesla, right? EFA, this is interesting, this A shares. I should have followed it, but it was really close to the end of the day. So I probably will if we get any sort of bounce. All right, so what happened yesterday? There was a couple things that happened, right? All right, so we saw that we're tall in EDU. Someone was buying it, right, for November. All right, so that's the tall. This is the EDU, okay? And these are institutional sizes, and these were all for November. Interesting, right? We had some January go through as well. Now, let's take a look at Kweb. This was after someone's making a huge bet, okay? Or this could be just replacement, but it says it's new because it could be a roll. I don't know, but either way, it's bullish. If this is basically they're doing this at the money. Like I say, it could in the money. It could be paper replacement. I don't know, but it gets my attention when I see this. Let's take a look at Bobalicious. A2 got a little bit of some institutional buying, but not a lot of conviction to the end of the month. So we have to keep an eye on this. The Kweb was the one that got my attention, right? Okay. Strong gains. Okay, let's take a peek here. What do we got? What do we got? More than 80% of stocks show a gain. Wow. Okay, this goes back to 1980. All right, what does this mean? Going back to 1980 when you have median stock year-to-date return for quarter three of 16%. That's a down year. Anyways, greater than 80% S&P, yada, yada, yada. 3 months out, bullish. 100% back test, 1989. Sloppy choppy until then, right? And the sweet spot is 3 months out. End of the year, right? Tailwind, UN, balance sheet, yada, yada, yada. 3 months, that's where we are, right? All right, strong gains to quarter three tend to keep going. Okay, this is cool. We like that, right? LFG, 3 months out, just down, up. You can see here, 6.7 reward, 3% on the downside, 6 months, 1 year out. And here's the S&P after 70% of stocks. 1983. 3 months out and 1 year. I love it. LFG. Optics. Okay, I said it wouldn't take a lot for this heat map to reset. Well, it reset. UNG, we discussed this yesterday. I was saying I was putting hedges on the physical. I'm an SCO. I'm in USO puts. Okay. And the KOLD, what I did was I'm writing puts. So I wrote puts, $5 puts. It was crazy. And I'm kind of probably roll those over to November puts as well, based on how much of a bounce we get in the KOLD. There's a lot. This is just too much. 97 on natural gas. I know it can stay extended, but risk reward is now to the downside on natural gas, not upside. We need to have a reset. It's not going to take a lot. We need to have a reset. And why I'm writing these puts on KOLD is because I've got longer dated. We know that with Cabot, right? Well, it's not Cabot. Anyways, UNG, yada, yada, yada. So this is a hedge, okay? SCO, USO, also a hedge. Okay. Go from there. Biotech, retail. All right, so I want to see some of these starting to bounce. And you can see energy financials is robust. Next week, what I have on for the financials, FYI, is I have a strangle on XLF. That's the easiest way for me. I have longer dated fintech, but you know, for me right now, because of earnings next week, I have November strangle on. Healthcare, money coming out, going into tech, utilities, yada, 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 going into energy. That's not going to surprise anybody. Countries, neutral for the US, Russia a little bit. And you can see here platinum on the downside. Cattle, so watch cotton. This is why this is no way interest rates aren't going to stay higher. Okay, just say market breadth, reset. Oh, sorry about that. Anyways, energy still extend. This is too high. You know the narrative on that. XLV, right? XLK, QQQs. So the bounce we had yesterday did relieve some of the oversold breadth narrative, but we still have a lot. Like this XLV is really quite something. Okay, and then you can see here the indices, right? Nifty 50 still pretty robust. Sensex is pretty robust. Money flows, energy, not a lot, but XLV, way to go. SPY. The SPY is it. I mean, nobody gives a shit about Qs. It's only the SPY, and that would make sense, right? Because of higher interest rates, the higher beta tech names on the Qs, yada, yada, yada. Okay. For those of you who are Elliott Wave peeps, this is Avi Gilbert's work. I encourage you. This is what he's looking for. I know it's a 5-minute, but work with me here. So basically, bounce and then roll over, but I don't know if we're going to get the bounce. It looks like we're still heading down. So that's what it looks like. Okay. VXN. This is the problematic situation I have. The VIX and the VXN is stubbornly staying bid. And I continue to see on the SQQQ buying, right? So hedges, right? We'll see how this plays out, but this obviously is a huge red flag, right? And I continue to say that they're buying the hedges, not so much through the option side, but on the SQQQ because it's so inexpensive, right? You know, under $10, you can buy a ton of it, right? And then be hedged that way. And to be honest with you, I'm doing the same thing. I have both options and I have equity, but like with the SDS, right? I've got techs. I have the equity, underlying equity as opposed to options. It's just too, it doesn't make sense unless you want to write puts, then that would work out okay, right? Let's take a look at the bonds, bond yield, yield curve flattening, stranger danger. Okay, Canada, overseas yields are higher, over in Pacific Asia, Japan, Australia, and Hong Kong down robustly. Let's take a look at the 5-year. It's in the process of breaking and holding against last month's pivot, right, is the high right here, and we'll see how this plays out. This is a red flag, right? And I said that, you know, we'll take a look what's going on with the TLT as well. Here's the 5-30-year bouncing off of this extension. Yield curve starting to flatten some more again, still 5-10, still holding up, but we'll see where this ends up. The 5 years should, okay, be gaining against the 10-year, okay? Just saying, that would be flattening, right? Okay. Here's the 10-year. It hasn't broken out yet of last month's pivot, right? And that was at 156.30. Let's see if it can do that. Okay, here's the 210. You can see what's going on here, right? And then here's the German. It basically got rebuffed at this extension, right? And here's the German US 10-year. Don't forget those numbers out of Germany were surprisingly weak. Here's the Chinese rates. You can see nothing going on here on the monthly. Keep an eye on that also. We want to make sure you can see here the Chinese 10-year continues to weaken against the US 10-year. Okay, that's a big deal in terms of money flows and stuff like that. Stock market, you can see down, sea of red. VIX is higher. Nifty 50. This is the bank Nifty 50 higher. CSI 300 in the Singapore. Let's take a quick peek. DAX breaking down. Well, this is the monthly, okay? So we'll see how this plays out. It broke this, but it's still holding this. So it hasn't confirmed yet on the downside. EFA has not confirmed either on the, well, yes, it has actually, it's right here. It's already gap lower, so we'll see. Not a good look here. I'm probably gonna put on some EFA puts, FYI. Here's the small cap, his growth versus value on the Russell. Okay, so the growth was weakening against value, then it kind of bounced up here. We should start to see this continuation. We know this right now. When we start to get this move down, that means that the market's selling off. That's what the theme has been, at least so far. Okay, here's the S&P growth versus value. It's weakening as well. I think it gets down to here initially, right? So that would be potentially a move of like 5% down on the growth versus value, okay? All right. Here's the FANG, held this extension on the monthly. See how it plays out. Here's the net. So let's look at the futures here. All right. So we have this channel that we've been in, okay, for this year, right? We've already got, at the reversion to the mean, all right, we've already gotten rebuffed there. So it has room on the downside. And you can see right here where it would be going in terms of the previous breakout potential, okay? So this is what it would look like. Coming back in, basically this is the extension. So that's 14,137 on the Q NASDAQ futures. Here's the S&P mini futures. Obviously it's been the strongest. It also got rebuffed at a reversion to the mean at the 21 EMA, as well as the mid rolling over again. You can see that we've got here the same sort of narrative going on the breakout potential right here. All right, see if it breaks down, and if it does, then I suspect we're going to get all the way back down here, which will be a move to the 50 EMA on the weekly. Okay, And when it does come in, it does like to do that, okay? As well as you can see here on the extension, right? Here's the Russell. This is a totally different narrative, obviously, right? Sideways consolidation, forever and a day, for the whole year, basically, right? Started in January 2021, right? Reversion to the mean, it doesn't really matter, but this is kind of interesting that the 50 EMA and the weekly also happens to be the bottom here. So we'll see how that plays out. I still have hedges on, and to be honest with you, I don't see myself taking those hedges on until we start to basically reclaim downtrend lines and until Spartan starts shining out. Yeah, that, you know, things are looking a lot better, right? If he's continuing to say how things look, ugly charts, you know, that's all I have to hear for me to keep stuff on. Here's the Dow. It's similar looking to the Russell, right? These are Dow Futures. Let's see what happens here. I'm thinking, you know, the channel here is a little bit steeper. I think we're getting back, and this once again would be a reversion to the mean of the 50 EMA. So that's kind of what I'm thinking across the board, is that we get a move down in the weekly to the 50 EMA. Okay, let's take a look at the XRT. I didn't like the price action yesterday. I did see some, like Abercrombie and Fitch, I did see some retail call sweeps coming through, which piqued my interest. I still have a little bit of a hedge on, and the reason being is I just don't like the way this looks, at least right now. I think on a lot of these, it has to retest, see if this pivot holds, and then curl up. So I think we kind of go like this, like this. Obviously, if we don't, then we're going down to here. Okay, so it's notable. Let's take a look at the Dow Transports. That's the same narrative we've got going on right here. It is holding on the monthly, this double bottom. Okay, notable. I still have, I have some FedEx puts on as a hedge against my transport position, all right? And that's basically like, I'm in the rails. I like the rails. So I think that's going to continue. But with that said, FedEx is the one I'm using as a hedge. Okay, I have some UPS out of the money stuff. So in my hedges, once again, for those of you who are interested, I've already rolled, everything's in the November contract. I'm willing to pay extra on the premium side as a result of that, just for the time component. I don't want to deal with next week with OpEx. Okay, that's why. All right, my time is up. Welcome once again, for those of you joining us, pre-market here at Spartan Trading. This is what we do every Wednesday. Well, every morning, actually, and then we open up the live stream. Okay. All right, so are you ready?
Just need a minute here, Beth, please.
Not a problem. Okay, that's the Dow. All right, that's the Dow Transports. Let's take a look at the XLY. Boy, here we go. Here's the XLC. It also is holding right now on the monthly. But it's all about risk reward. So we have to be a little bit careful with this. All right. So if we do take out this low, potentially, right? The risk reward is a little bit, the only problem I have though with this, let's look at the weekly. That would be a little bit better right now. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Happens. Okay, so this week's low is important. If we take out this week's low, okay, then we're basically going to be heading down here. Let me pull this up in terms of that. There we go. All right. It also got rebuffed at the mean, right? It also basically has, if you look here on the 50 EMA on the weekly, a move down to this 23.6% fib, and that's 75.10. So what I'm doing on my fibs, just so you know, I'm going back to the COVID pandemic, March 2020. Okay, so when you're looking at a bigger picture, that's where you would be looking at as a meaningful low in the market and then starting to go higher. Okay, let's keep an eye on it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we definitely have to pay attention to that. Okay, let's take a look at it. And don't forget the XLC is basically Facebook, Google makes up 40% of it. So that's the narrative there. This is the weekly on the XLY, looking a little bit more constructive. It actually is holding the mean. And that a lot of it has to do with Tesla and other consumer discretionary names. Amazon's been a shit show, we know that. But you can see here, it's holding up this is on my radar as a hedge if we start to break this, because then you would have this kind of a move down to here, right? So you would be, this is what we would be looking at is a move down to here, the 169.81. So if we do break and hold below the mean here on the weekly, so that would be this week's low, I would be looking to buy XLY puts. Okay, that's how I'm thinking of that one. All right, here's the SPY against the XLC. So I want to know, the SPY has been incredibly strong. We know this, right? So the question is going to be is, does the SPY have to do a catch up on the downside? That is the penultimate question right now, right? I don't know. But the first thing that would happen is the SPY would break this uptrend line. This has been holding since back here in August of this year, right? And this is when we started to see the SPY getting a pickup in terms of investment. We should, if indeed we are having a more meaningful pullback in the market, this should break and the SPY should start to catch up on the downside. Okay. Here's the FANG against the XLC. The FANG has been holding, believe it or not, against the XLC. So these are the different things I want to see, okay, when I'm looking at the market as a whole, strength and weakness, right? So you can see right here, we are indeed gapping lower, okay, on the XLK, and it's into this pivot right here. We also have a little bit, and you can see also that with the XLK, it's already below the 23.6% fib. So that's notable. So a lot of things that are happening, you got to keep an eye on, right? Same narrative here, SPY against the XLY. If this breaks down, then clearly the SPY is going to start leading on the downside. So what's the Reader's Digest version of this? The Reader's Digest version is that I'm heavily weighted on my hedge side on the SPY. So that's the SPX shoe, SDS. That's the Reader's Digest. So on my hedges, I've got like 3-to-1 on the SPY versus on the Qs. Okay, on my hedge side. Okay, here's the SPY XRT. Let's see if this starts to break down as well. Here's the SPY QQQ. As you can see, the SPY has been holding up. It pulled down. This is the red flag, right? We had a bounce in the market, okay, and the SPY still is holding up against the Qs. Right? So this, and if we break this top here, clearly that's a negative on the tech side, right? So this is the only spread that I would look at, which would be, this would confirm narrative of the market coming down. Here's a SPY XLV. This is really notable. This is a monthly downtrend break on this, on the healthcare. This is another one that I want to see if the market is indeed going to go higher. The XLV, I want to see the healthcare lead. Okay, but as you can see here, since COVID, it hasn't been, right? We had this pullback. That was these are all red flags, right? Here's a SPY against the Russell right here sitting. This is notable because this is the 38.2% fib. So let's see if it starts to come down. There's tons of congestion here, right? Tons. So I still want to see.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to come on whenever.
All right, my friends.
Alrighty, guys, morning. What's going on? If you guys are new to chat, Discord link was emailed to you. If you don't see it, it's in your junk mail, but it is certainly there because it's sent out automatically. Thanks for you guys joining in on the YouTube stream as well. I'll go through the basically the instructions if you guys just joined chat later on. But if you did just join, check out the new to chat information section in the Discord at the very top. Give that whole section a read. It should be pretty straightforward after that. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. Couple different things that we are looking at today. Pre-market tickers on watch. mRNA. Oh, did I put that twice? I did too. NRGO, NVX, PLTR, VYGR. And one sec, guys. There's one more that I'm missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. That should be this first mRNA. Okay. mRNA SE. There you are. NRGU, NVX, PLTR, VYGR. Most things are gapping down with the market. mRNA SC, NRGU, NVAX, then PLTR wins an $823 million contract for intelligence data fabric. VYGR signs license options agreement with Pfizer valued up to $600 million. Both those stocks are gapping up. The rest are gapping down. All right, let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. So first two we're going to be looking at today, guys, mRNA and SC. mRNA has always been and has been lately, a very good name to trade in the morning. Let's see what we got going on here. So mRNA gapping down. Let's see, all my labels are leveled. A little bit extended to the downside still. Looks like that parabolic downtrend, we may be reclaiming it. Let's look at the exact levels though. Yeah, actually maybe retesting it. And no, not quite. It's too far up. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this thing on the intraday chart. You can see that there's actually an hourly bear flag that's definitely formed. Pivot to the downside today will be that flag range, which is 318.57. That level is able to hold. We do have room to bounce back towards 336.75. If that level breaks, 350.04. Unable to hold, 306.37 to the 297.46 will be tested on the downside. Overall, on mRNA, going to be leading on the bearish side today, looking for continuation lower. Whenever I see an extension that holds to the downside, I always get a little bit more bearish because I think it can get continuation lower. And this situation is no exception. It's going to be leaning bearish on mRNA today. Let's take a look at this SE. Just going to make that. There we go. All right, next one up. All right, SC, stock's gapping down as well. Let's take a look at this thing on the daily. About 312 was the lows in the pre-market. Okay, let's get the previous range low, 50 MA. Stay high. All right, let's take a look at the signature day here. Okay, so SC gapping down, still stuck within this range essentially. 316.60 levels unable to hold. That's the pivot. We got room towards 311.78 to the 309.12 level. And if that level breaks, we can see further continuation towards 305.72 on the downside. Able to hold, look for a push back towards 323.62 to 328.27. Actually going to be leaning a little bit more on the bullish neutral side today. I think we can see a hold of that support and a reclaim of the pivot for continuation higher. So look for a grind back towards the top of that range. That's mRNA, that's SC. Let's take a look at the next two names. Thanks. Yeah, heat chaser. So mRNA, Sweden pauses Moderna vaccine for people born in 1991 and later pauses due to indication of heightened risk of side effects such as heart muscle inflammation. Thank you, boss. All right, let's take a look at NRGU and NVAX. That means Nvax probably moving in sympathy with that as well. Just gonna update that news. There we go. All right. NRGU, NVAX, next two. It's NRGU gapping down. Let's take a look at where this thing's got room to. A little extended to the upside, sympathy with the market. Heck of a run this thing's had. Wow. So that parabolic uptrend did break, that's for sure. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday here, see where it's got room to. It's actually just retesting short-term EMA support, filling that gap. Primarily, that's what it looks like. But if this pivot fails to hold, it does have quite a bit of room to the downside. So 165.98 pivot to the downside today. This level is able to hold. We have room for continuation towards 176.01 to the 183.22. Unable to hold 155.14 to the 144.23 level will be tested on the downside. Overall on NRGU, I should say, sorry. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a hold of that pivot and a continuation push higher. But of course, if the pivot does cross to the downside, it will be flipping over to the bearish side. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at NVAX. So slight gap down, looks like holding the bottom end range here. It's not extended to the downside. Let's take a look at this thing intraday here. Looks like my levels are labeled. All right, zoom in a little bit. All right, pivot to the downside today, 166.72. This level is unable to hold. 159.99 will be tested. That level breaks 154.51 on the downside. Able to be reclaimed. Look for a push back towards 172.41 to 175.96 on the upside. Overall, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today. Actually, sorry, bullish neutral side today. Looking for a little bit of a bounce on NVAX to the upside. So looking for a continuation push back towards the pivot reclaim. See if we can get back into the upper end resistance levels. So that's NRGU. That is NVAX. Let's take a look at the next two names, which are PLTR, VYGR. for about 25.07, basically right at that 50 EMA on Pelletier. Let's take a look at this thing intraday. $25.18 pivot, levels able to hold, room towards $25.99 to the $26.90 level on the upside. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards the $24.50 to $23.64 on the downside. Overall on PLTR, going to be leaning bullish neutral only if we can get above this pivot. If not, it's going to give back all its gains like it typically does. So keep an eye on that, guys, this morning. That is PLTR. Let's take a look at this VYGR. I actually like the news on this one. Keep it on NCTY, guys. Just broke through resistance this morning. I'm watching that in BTBT as well. Let's get this previous pivot level as a support. Obviously the 50 MA resistance. All right, so 363 pivot to the upside today on VYGR. Unable to hold, towards 316. That level breaks. We got 282 on the downside, able to hold 395 and then 444 on the upside. Going to be leaning bullish on the name, looking for a continuation push higher. I like the risk reward still off the lows. I think it's good. Previous revenue, 124 million, $600 million contract with Pfizer. That's pretty legit. And a ton of room off the lows. So we'll see what happens in that regard. So it looks good in my opinion. So that's VYGR, going to be leaning bullish on that. And that is PLTR. All right, let's take a look at the SPY and FANG. All right, guys, SPY and the FANG. So market, let's take a look at the daily real quick. Actually, you know what? We'll do this as I usually do. Throw it up on the side here. So market obviously short term did reclaim EMA support yesterday, now broke back below it. We're retesting this inverted head and shoulders in the pre-market, which currently we're back above, which is that 428.94 level, which in my opinion will act as the pivot point today. So let's label it. There it is, 428.94. That level is able to hold. We have room for continuation on the SPY higher, back towards 429.91 to 430.78. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on the SPY towards the 427.64 to 426.64 on the downside. Below that, 425.51. Overall in the market today, I'm going to be leaning again on the bullish neutral side today. I want to see a hold of this pivot point, continuation push higher. We'll see if it's able to do so. Looks to me like it's holding up okay. But pivot's going to be the key level today. that inverted head and shoulders does break, we will go back towards previous range lows. That's typically how it works. So leading bullish for neutral for now. All right, so that's a SPY. Let's take a look at Apple, guys. Screenshot that. All right, Apple. So basically in a downtrend here, that's for sure. She did a pretty good job of holding last day's low. So pivot to the upside today, 138.75, levels able to hold 140. So 140, 184 will be tested. Unable to hold, we look for pullback towards 137.46 to the 130.581 on the downside. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning with the market, bullish neutral for now. We'll see if it's able to hold up. If not, we'll pull back, but so far holding up okay. VYGR, nice push there, guys. All right, let's take a look at Amazon. Okay, Amazon, guys, pivot to the upside today is going to be the same level as yesterday, which is this 32.09 levels able to hold. We got room back towards 32.57 to 32.89, unable to hold 31.72 to 31.39 on the downside. Right now, going to be leaning bearish neutral. Going to be looking for continuation lower. It looks like it's going to grind to the downside into the bottom end of the range on the daily. Once it gets to the bottom end of the range, I do think we'll probably get a bounce, but until then, bearish. Netflix, which I'll label last day's high, and then the resistance there, and then the 645, 70, which I know is a fib. All right, pivot 632.34 levels able to hold. 640.38, 645.75, unable to hold 620.81 to 615.55 on the downside, leaning bullish neutral on Netflix, looking for a reclaim of the pivot, continuation push higher. Incredible strength last couple sessions, and I do think it can continue. It's at all-time highs. Nice little breakout yesterday. We'll see what happens in regards to that continuation today. Let's take a look at Facebook. So a little bit of a gap down. Didn't move too much based off of the hearing yesterday, which was surprising because it did get smashed into it, right? 329.13 pivot, levels able to hold. You got room towards 331.76 to the 333.87 on the upside. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 324.52 on the downside. Overall on Facebook, I'm actually going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a little bit of a bounce if that pivot point can hold. I think given, all the news lately, should be able to bounce. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the actual market does. It will trade in sympathy with the SPY cues, of course, right? All right, let's take a screenshot of that. Let's move on to Google. All right, Google, guys. So 50 MA rejection yesterday on the retest. Pivot to the downside today, 268.54, levels able to hold, 27.13. The 27.39 will be tested, unable to hold. 26.68 to 26.46 on the downside. Overall on Google, going to be leading on the bearish side today. Or sorry, bullish neutral side today, looking for a hold pivot and a grind back towards that 50 EMA. We'll see what happens there. All right, last but not least, guys. Let's take a look at the VIX, Qs, IWM. VIX pivot downside today. 23.13. Levels able to hold, we move towards 24.39. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 21.84 to the 20.74. Obviously, you can see that the EMA support still holding on the VIX. Right in the middle of its range. It's kind of creating a huge wedge on the daily. So we're going to break out one way or the other on the VIX pretty soon here, I would say. And the market's showing us that's probably going to be to the downside, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. QQQs, not leaning any direction, but that's the VIX. Did I take a screenshot? I think I did. Good. I don't know if I saved it though. Yes, I did. All right, let's take a look at the Qs. So QQQ guys gapping down. Basically looks the exact same as Facebook chart. Pivot to the downside today. 353.78 levels able to hold. Room back towards 355.18 to 356.28. Unable to hold. 352.29, 351.35, then 350.25 on the downside. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today. Looking for a continuation lower if the pivot's unable to hold. And then last but not least, guys, let's take a look at IWM. All right, IWM. Pivot to the downside today is 219.02. Levels unable to hold. Room towards 217.45 to 214.85 on the downside. Able to hold 220.22 to the 221.65 level on the upside will be tested. Overall on IWM, going to be leaning on the bearish side today. Looking for a continuation lower. You got a 50 EMA rejection on the daily, and it's got some room lower in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there. So that's a SPY, it's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. I'm going to go ahead, pass over to Salt Beach. She'll come on, give you a breakdown of what he's looking at, and then we'll do a quick little recap for the open. Salt Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Okay, guys. Okay, let's see what we're looking at today, hump day. I mean, just an observation. I talked about it yesterday. What did we have? Thursday, the market got smoked, right? Friday, big up day. Monday, smoked. Tuesday, big up day. Wednesday, smoked. And I'm saying overnight should be really, really cautious and really, really small. And you should only have stocks that are not influenced by the S&P. So I stand by that. Okay, the stocks I'm carrying are completely on their own, not influenced by the S&P, or minimally, I should say. And that's the way you have to play it until this changes, okay? Looking at the technicals, they kind of stink. You know, S&P looks terrible. The Qs looks terrible. The IWMs look a little less terrible, but not really, nothing to write home about. And the transports act a little heavy as well. So, you know, the technicals aren't good. You go to individual stocks, and mostly, with a few exceptions, they're not so terrific. And we're in we've had an amazing run. And I stand by what I said. You don't know what one day is going to change. There's a lot of balls in the air, which I'll talk about in a minute. And to dig your heels in and take positions here is lunacy. Okay, there's times to make a lot of money. There's times you have to be risk adverse. This is one of those times. Okay, so for those of you that are just swinging away like normal, I hope you're not sorry about it. Okay, that's all I can say. So looking at the 10-year, it's unchanged at 152. But that's an elevated level from what we've seen recently, albeit it's in the middle of the range for the year. And we'll see if it can hang out here. Okay, there's certainly inflationary sources out there, which we'll talk about. 10-year in London is at 1.10, which is, greater than a double from where it was in late August, early September. Okay. Germany, it's still a minus number, but it was what, minus 0.5, and now it's minus 0.18. So we're seeing inflation. We can pinpoint it mostly, but we'll go over that in a minute. So bond yields have been rising. Still, with this rise, inflation greater than the bond yield, stocks are still the best game in town, but that doesn't mean they have to go up. It just means it's the best alternative. Okay, had you been long bonds, you would have gotten your clock cleaned. Okay, and so that's the situation. Now let's look at commodities. Okay, so you have oil down 1%, and natural gas, which was up earlier today, is down 20 cents. But 20 cents ain't going to cut it, guys. I mean, when it's up from what, 250 to 610, I mean, down 20 cents. So natural gas is holding the bonds hostage, especially in Europe. And in the Northeast, they're talking about all these places refusal to build pipelines. Well, you don't want to build a pipeline? I get it, I wouldn't want a pipeline in my backyard either. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to be paying for it. Okay, so you have natural gas down a little bit, 20 cents. Copper hanging out in the middle here. So I guess the fear is stagflation, guys. Low growth, no growth with higher prices, higher costs. On the agricultural commodity side, cotton, another 4.5% today. This thing is just absolutely bonkers on the upside, as are a bunch of things. Okay, so you're definitely getting inflationary forces right across the board. And then you have Powell's reelection. Okay, you saw Elizabeth Warren on TV last night. I don't know how an attorney becomes, the bank expert, but she considers herself an expert. And she's all about beating the banks up. And he's not. Okay, so I think that's what it boils down to, basically. I don't know. I'm not going to get into politics, so I'm just going to move on to crypto. So we have Bitcoin up 2% and Ethereum's down 1%. You don't see that very often, but you see it. And Bitcoin's been very strong. We had that 40,000, 50,000 collar, and it's now broke above. So, you'd think that was going to go higher based on that. And let's look at the indexes. So you have the FTSE down 1%. This is an improvement from earlier. The DAX is down 1.5%, 235 points. Nikkei is down 1%. China is still closed, and Hong Kong is down 0.5%. Okay, is there anything else here that's worth talking about? No. Okay, so you have the banks and the Fed, right? So you have all these balls in the air. You have Powell in doubt. What's going to happen with that? We don't know. Okay, you have this government funding debt limit, which they claim they're going to run out of money on October 18th. Not a good situation. This has happened once before, I remember, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little more. It lasted for a day or two. Market got a little rattled. I'm sure they'll, this is, they're playing possum, over there. So who knows what's going to be. My only confusion is, since the Democrats control all three houses, and I'm no expert on politics, nor do I pretend to be, but I don't understand why they can't pass something if they control all three houses. Maybe you need, I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. So it's just a little weird. They could use, but yeah, they don't want to use budget reconciliation. Okay, so I don't know. I watch the politicians in this country, and all I do is shake my head. And let's leave it at that. Okay. Okay, so that's the banks and the Fed. China, another area that's causing some kind of problems, right? They've done military flyovers with over Taiwan now. They said 120 in the last week or something like that. They opted out of the G20 meeting yesterday. Supposedly, it came out that Biden had a conversation with Xi about Taiwan. Biden wanted to do some kind of summit. Xi didn't. A lot of body language indicating that Taiwan is going to become a little more heated, and I don't know what's going to be with that. But it's certainly not a calming situation, okay, at the very least, okay? And you know what I think of Chinese stocks, guys. I say it every day. I mean, that was an unbelievable call, guys. Like what, 4 or 5 months ago, telling you to get the hell out of Dodge. They haven't had an uptick since. Crypto, I think, is fine. We talked about it. The oil market is another problem, which we discussed. Okay, that's not changing anytime soon that I can see. And according to my friend Mark Fisher, who is the smartest guy in the room in the commodity area, he says it's going higher. That would be an even bigger problem. Okay, and Mark's rarely wrong, guys. This guy is really smart. Okay, he knows this business like you can't believe. All right, so the virus, we have a couple of things on the virus this morning. One out of Sweden, pausing Moderna for anyone under 30 because of side effects. So that stock's down this morning on that. But other than that, it seems like, the vaccine program is, moving along nicely. And I guess as long as the strain doesn't get outside the realm of the vaccine, things should keep improving. Okay, as far as the dollar, which I actually did not go over, the currencies are just in a super tight range. Okay, up slightly against North America, down against the yen, down a little bit against the Chinese currency, and the euros 115. Okay, so nothing there. So that's the dollar. And Mr. Market. So yesterday we had, gangbuster day up. What was negative? Hospitals and retail. I was all over the retail trade yesterday. But at the end of the day, because of this spastic market, I take anything S&P related off the sheets. So I have nothing coming in for any of that stuff. As far as longs, the banks were strong. Insurance stocks, high PE tech, semis, rails. China stocks were strong, FANG and Bitcoin. Okay, So every day is an adventure. Today, again, we're going to have an adventure. Okay. What you like to see as a trader, them open down and close up. What's going higher? I don't know what that means. Today or yesterday or what, Travel? So you like to see the market open down. Okay. It gives you a chance to maybe to get out of this little funk, but based on all the balls in the air, guys, you know, the debt limit, China, inflation, all this stuff, I don't think we're getting out of this funk. Certainly not in the next week or so, I don't think. Okay, so and additionally, this time of year is tough on the market. Okay, so the calendar's not good, the news service isn't good, the charts aren't good. You got to be super careful. Okay, don't give back your profits. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so what else came out? Numbers wise, you had AYI, which was pretty positive. Palantir's up on a Army contract, but one of the analysts today is saying that that contract is old and they put out a sell on the stock, which I'll get into in a minute. And VYGR signed a license agreement for Pfizer for 600 million, and it's up a fair amount. This SCLB signed the license agreement the other day, and the upside to that was like $1 billion and change. So I'm a little confused why this one's so good. They tried to sign it with Takata. I don't know. Maybe you guys are short. Who the hell knows? Anyway, that's on the positive side. On the negative side, you had Constellation Brands. They missed, but they guided up. So the stock's down a little bit. Terrific company. That's that. HOV lowered guidance. I could see this group being heavy with interest rates going higher. Okay, which is the home builder group. A couple of offerings, TSHA, Manu had an offering that's down, HESM. Takata suspended a drug in phase 2, that's down on that news. This SWX, which is Icon, they said he's involved in the company, down a little bit this morning. And the Moderna news I gave you, right? That's out of Sweden. So that's that. What else do we have here? Research-wise, there was a couple of decent research pieces. The best of the research pieces came out of Morgan Stanley, where she took the IT hardware industry and she went cautious. Now, this is a 5-star analyst, Katie Uberty, so she knows what she's talking about. Declining CIO hardware spending and growth outlook in 22 is negative. Basically, and rising inventory. Outperformance of PCs and peripherals last year, and demand price forward. So basically what she's saying was when everybody was working at home, guys, they pulled demand forward. And so spending is going to be a little softer going forward. And the CIOs are reducing their spending, maybe because people are going to work from home or what have you. But she downgraded STX to equal weight with an 88 target from 118. She downgraded the CDW, which is a company that I use sometimes to buy stuff, but mostly it's a institutional product. They lowered the target out to equal weight, lowered the target to 198 from 208. And what else do they have here? GoGo, they downgraded to a sell. I think the stock's got ahead of itself. And what else? She likes Apple. She has a 168 target. That's the same analyst. And a different analyst, Intel, they reiterate the outperform. They take the target from 70 to 67, but stock's 53. And they like Microsoft with a 331 target. Okay, sticking to the sell side, guys. Goldman was negative on US Steel. They go to a sell, but the target's what, 21? Where's the stock? 21. They go from 34 to 21. Increased spending for decarbonization, and they downgraded NUE, same reason. Okay, I mean, if I like NUE, US Steel not as much. Target 123 to 108. NUE is a really good company, guys. They downgraded American Airlines and JetBlue. Okay, guys, when you look at a company like that, right, and you say, what are their two predominant, costs? Well, they're fuel, right, and employees, right, labor. Both those cases, prices are going up, so you would think there may be a margin squeeze. And capacity is still not full. So I understand the downgrade. So AAL neutral to sell and JetBlue buy to neutral. Okay, so that's that one. Any other downgrades worthwhile? PLTR, I was telling you that one analyst was Citibank. So they reiterate the sell target 18, and they say this contract from the DoD is old, and they're presenting it as if it's new. Okay, so that's what that guy's saying. Anything in the long side worthwhile? Okay, Baird likes Apple. This BNP Paribas upgraded FCX to outperform target 39.5. Wainwright likes Biohaven. Target goes up to 160. A couple of guys like this PSX. Piper raised it to outperform. Take the target from 85 to 87. Okay, probably doesn't work today, but it is in a good trend. And who is this? Deutsche Bank. Is this Deutsche Bank? No, Loop. Loop had a lot of initiations today, so just let's go over basically what they like. They did the restaurant group. They like Wendy's. They like Texas Roadhouse. They like McDonald's. That's it in that group. And they like Play. Not really fast food, but you know what they do. And they also like Crown Cork. They like Choice Hotels. They like Hyatt. That's about it. Okay. Their research, I don't know how much play it's going to get, but that's what they're saying. Anything else? No. So secondary, there's one new issue, NVEI, payment processor out of Canada. And there's three secondaries, XONE, HESM, and INDT. INDT got priced pretty good in the hole. Kathy, same names as she's been playing, Teladoc, SGFY, all charts are disasters. She just keeps buying them path. And that's the story there. Out of the gate, the only group that looks really good is Bitcoin. So we'll see what happens from here. But I love down openings, so we'll see if we can figure something out. All right, Spartan, it's all yours, man.
All righty, thank you, South Beach guys. Morning, what's going on? One second, my platform's kind of being weird right now. There we go. I think we're good. Okay, good. So what's going on, guys? If you're new to chat, Discord sent to you. If you haven't checked it out, it's in your email. If you haven't seen it in your email, it's probably in your junk mail. When you come in, check out the new to chat information section. We'll go over that in just a second. Now, let's take a look at and do a quick little recap of what we talked about this morning. Now you can look at the, and if you guys are watching the YouTube stream, pause it and just read the pre-market action plan here, here. All the charts are obviously posted. And then on the option side, same thing. And there you go. Okay, so pre-market tickers on watch. What do we got? mRNA, SC, NRGU, NVAX, PLTR, VYGR. mRNA, sweetened positive Moderna vaccine for people born in 1991 and later. Pause due to indication of heightened risk of side effects such as heart muscle inflammation. Stocks gapping down. SC gapping down in sympathy with the market and after last day's BTC push. NRGU gapping down in sympathy with the oil market. NVAX gapping down in sympathy with the mRNA in the market. PLTR. Technologies wins $823 million contract. Then VYGR signs a licensing agreement with Pfizer that's valued up to $600 million. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two we're talking about today, mRNA and SC. Let's take a look at these. So mRNA stock is gapping down. Pivot to the downside today is going to be that 318.57 level. Level is able to hold. Room back towards 336.75 to 350.04. Unable to hold. 306.37 to 297.46 on the downside will be tested. Overall on mRNA, leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower today. Let's take a look at this SE. Pivot to the upside today, 316.60. Levels able to hold. We got room for continuation on SC into the 323.62 to 328.27, unable to hold. 311.78 to the 309.12 level will be tested on the downside. Overall on SC, leaning bullish neutral. I'm actually looking for the bottom end of this range to hold and a continuation push higher. Plus, BTC is really strong this morning. It's actually testing a breakout range to 52,700 is the level to keep an eye on there. NRGU, let's take a look at this, and let's take a look at NVAX. NRGU 165.98 pivot levels able to hold 176.01 to 183.22, unable to hold 155.13 to the 144.23 level on the downside. Overall on NRGU, going to be leaning on the what was I leaning? Bearish neutral right now, looking for continuation lower if it's unable to hold. NVAX 166.72 pivot level holds 172.41 to 175.96, unable to hold 159.99 to 154.51 on the downside. Overall on NVAX leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push back to the upside today. Let's take a look at the last two, PLTR and VYGR, which VYGR a little bit of a scalp this morning, which worked out nicely. So 25.18 PLTR pivot levels able to be reclaimed. 25.99 to 26.90 will be tested. Unable to hold 24.50 to 23.64 on the downside. Overall on PLTR leaning bullish neutral only if the pivot can be reclaimed. And then a VYGR 363 pivot levels able to be reclaimed. We got room towards the 395, which is where we're above right now. That level breaks. 444 is where we get to. Unable to hold 316, 282 on the downside, leaning bullish, looking for continuation higher, and it is getting that continued push to the upside right now. So that looks good. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG market pivot upside. Let's type this out. SPY, and if you guys are unfamiliar, I do post all my SPY levels on Twitter all day long, but SPY 428 pivot to the upside today. This level holds, room higher into the 429.91. Breaks, we see the 430.78 to the 431.37 level tested. Pivot unable to hold. Room lower into the 427.64. Breaks, we see the 426.64 to 425.51 on the downside. I'm leaning bullish out the gate, guys. I want to see a continued bounce to the upside. Market does look like it's holding that inverted head and shoulders on the daily, which is bullish for a continued bounce. Let's take a look at the Apple. Apple pivot to the upside today, guys, is that 139.75 level. Sorry, 138.75 level. Levels able to hold 140 to 141.84 will be tested. Unable to hold 137.46 to 135.81. Leaning bullish neutral on Apple, looking for a continuation push to the upside today. Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon pivot 32.09. Levels able to hold. We got room towards 32.57 to 32.89. Unable to hold 31.72, 31.39. Overall on Amazon leaning bearish. If neutral, unless it's able to reclaim that pivot, then of course we'll be flipping over to the bullish side. So watch that level today. Let's take a look at Netflix, which continues to hold up quite well. Netflix pivot 632.34 level holds, room towards 640.38 to 645.75. Unable to hold 620.81 to 615.55 on the downside. Overall, Netflix leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation higher today. Pivot Facebook 329.13 level holds. We got room towards 331.76 to 333.87. Unable to hold 334.52 on the downside will be tested. And I'm going to be leaning bullish neutral on Facebook today. I think we can get a continued bounce after last day's, not sell off, and it had a huge sell off due to the news. So I think it's got some room to bounce. And Google pivot. I feel like I forgot to relabel this. Oh, it's because my platform crashed. 26.86.54 pivot level holds 27.13 to 27.38. Unable to hold 26.69 to 26.46 on the downside. Overall on Google, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side as well, looking for a continuation push back towards the 50 MA on the daily. Let's take a look at the VIX, Qs, IWM. VIX pivot upside today is going to be that 2310 level holds 2427, 2525, unable to hold 2183 to 2077 on the downside. Not leaning any direction, but using it for direction on the SPY. QQQ's pivot upside today is going to be the, see this, I hate when it crashes, but all right. So pivot today is going to be the 353.78 level is able to hold. We got room towards 355.19 to 356.28, unable to hold 352.39 to 351.35 on the downside, leaning on the bearish neutral side today if the pivot's unable to hold. And then last but not least, guys, the IWM, which the pivot is 219.02, level is unable to hold. We do have room for continuation lower into the 217.45 to 214.85. So 217.45 to 214.85, able to hold 220.22 to 221.65 on the upside. And overall on the IWM, I'm leaning bearish neutral. So that's the SPY, that's the FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise,